I'm Suraj. Thank you so much, ELETS, for this opportunity to share the stage yet again with very enterprising people and eminent people from education industry. The topic for today is role of technology, and with the increase in internet penetration in the country, how the students have changed to shortlist and apply to different institutions. And in tune of this, how the educational institutions are changing the way they were attracting, engaging, and enrolling students. Now, to set the tone and agenda of the discussion, I would start by saying that the times have changed over the past decade and a half. From students and their parents standing in long queues inside and outside of colleges to obtain an application form and praying to get admission, from getting discounts and scholarships and still not taking admissions has also been the challenge. There are more than 40,000 colleges in the country. There are more than 800 private universities and universities. There are a lot of standalone institutions. So in a way, the industry has also become very competition intense. And this intensity in the competition has also become a challenge. To few institutions, it's about quantity of intake. To many institutions, it's about quality of intake also. Now, we would like to understand from the panelists on different aspects of what sort of changes they are doing, how are they adopting to technology, to change the way they were interacting with the students, attracting the students, engaging and enrolling the students, right? So the first question I would like to route to Dr. Samir Khasni, sir. Sir, as I've discussed that internet penetration in the country is increasing. There are more than 500 million people who use internet today. Out of that, 250 million people are those who use social media, essentially Facebook. The time spent on Facebook is super high. The consumption of content, the consumption of video content has also increased, right? So what, as per you, has been the shift in trends from offline to online, and how the educational institutions are absorbing to that change?
Good afternoon and thanks for this opportunity. As we continue to say that it's all about digital marketing and it's about social media and student acquisitions are going to happen through technology, having said that being true and increasing, I personally feel omni-channel marketing is going to stay, because in education, traditionally we deal with different kind of stakeholders and parents being one of them. So the age group of parents for post-graduation programs would be typically in the range of 50 to 60 or 65, and those are the guys who pay for the students' fees. So omnipresence is extremely important, and there are people who read newspapers. If you see and as education marketers, we spend around 2,000 crores of rupees is going in marketing, and a fairly big share still continues to go in newspapers, and which was again initially maybe 10 years back it was around 90%, now it is around 70%. So newspapers will stay because we speak to stakeholders. If you are a postgraduate education provider, then you want to address to stakeholders like your job recruiters, the government agencies, and to the student parents and the bankers to show that you are a creditable institution. Loan financing should happen. Having said that, if we also realize now smaller platforms in social media like probably Instagram is driving more traffic for student enrollments compared to a Facebook today or a Google search. So it very clearly is looking at, it's about student acquisitions and marketing is content driven completely, for which people are going to be spending on digital marketing. So initially if you put an ad in the newspaper, you would get maybe 300, 350 phone calls, and your seminar halls used to be full. Things have completely stopped. You get hardly 10 phone calls and hardly 25 people land up in the seminars. So what is happening? Technology is completely taking over the counseling part of it. All information is already pushed on multiple channels and platforms, and typically what you do in the content itself is your marketing. Payment gateways are integrated. Life now is known as before Geo and after Geo, so we are now after Geo. So entire content pushing, payment gateways, interview call selections, all are happening through technology, which is a part of marketing. So it is not segregated, what I'm trying to say. As omni channels will continue, you will participate in exhibitions and student fairs. The big trend again which is happening, what a single institution couldn't do initially in marketing now is getting outsourced to big companies like yours. Yeah, so people are spending, so that is also part of marketing. Maybe we are not able to address yet. Are we talking about addressing advertising spends or the overall marketing spends? And I would say investment in branding, technology, and student acquisition all this has become a part of marketing now.
Great, thank you. I would like to ask the audience, how many of us are involved in some sort of marketing activity in educational institutions? If you just give me a raise of hand. All right, all right, all right, a couple of us, okay, fine. So thank you so much, Samir sir, for bringing that point, multi-channel, omni-channel marketing. But there's an alternate thought to it also. A student has multiple touch points, right? Because the educational institutions choose to adopt to different sort of marketing strategies. They would be online, they would be on electronic, they would be on print, they would be on outdoor. The students also have different touch points, right? So I would like to ask this question to Santosh Nair sir from Parul University. Is it, what as per your experience has worked well? Uniformity of experience and uniformity of communication across channels at a point and creating an omni-channel experience as Samir sir mentioned, or varying communication through different touch points all the time, right? So suppose you are on print, you have a different communication for the students, maintaining the brand guidelines. If you are in electronic at the same time, creating a different sort of a communication strategy there. What really works well?
A very good afternoon to everyone. Now, before I come to this particular point, I'll just like to mention one quote, which is a very famous quote in the force industry 4.0. There is a saying in business which goes like this: digitally disrupt or be digitally disrupted. And this is applicable to also the ever competitive education sector, which is also one form of a large complex business in today's scenario. Now, whether any particular firm, any particular business, it has in today's scenario became mandatory that it needs to have a digital strategy. Now, digital strategy, why particularly for the education sector? Because the education sector, which previously was defined, has changed its definition over a period of time. Previously, education sector was only about academics. But now there is one more component that has been added into education sector, that is the business part of education. So if we talk about the business part of education, as we are talking the admissions part, right? So there are a lot of areas like admissions, record keeping, brand building and brand management, payroll management, fees management, facilities management and whatnot, including placements as well. So if you look at all these aspects of the education system, we can see that in the current scenario, there has been a lot of vibrancy in terms of digitally communicating to the target audience that what actually a particular institute or university is going towards, right? Now, as I was asked for this particular question, that how different channels of or how different digital channels are going to have a different impact on the target audience. Now, to be very specific on this, in today's scenario, as academics or education is open for all, as compared to what it was previous decades ago. Previous decades ago, education was only for the one who deserved to get educated. But at this point of time, everybody, every individual who has money has the right to get educated. Right? Now, all the students which we get for a particular university, all of them are not even interested to get educated in that particular field. Now, this might prove to be very, I would say, irrational and erratic, but the matter of the fact is, there are so many students in current scenario, they are pursuing their engineering because of the advent of more private universities coming in. These students are just doing degree for the sake of getting a degree, right? But they are not very much interested to do some kind of engineering. But now, still universities are attracting this kind of crowd and getting their seats filled up. If I talk about all the large universities across the country, we are having an intake of more than 10,000 engineering students per year. Now, if I talk about the talent level of the students who are passing out after 12th, I won't say that not more than 40% of these crowd would be actually capable of doing engineering as well. But still the private universities and maybe other universities are also trying to fill up seats with this talent pool, right? Not on the basis of only engineering education, but also on the basis of the aspiration of the students. Because there are so many activities going on in a particular campus, apart from academics. Whether it is sports, whether it is extracurricular activities, whether it is research and development, there are so many avenues. So it has become very mandatory for every university to propagate what all activities are going on in a particular university. And this I am talking about apart from academics. Right? So if I talk about a student who is very good at sports, but then he is also forced from his family that he wants to pursue an education in engineering, right? So that student would prefer to get into a university which is providing him or her with this kind of opportunities apart from doing his engineering as well. Right? So there are so many students from our university, let's say we are a private university. There are so many, I would say 30% of the students would be willing to go for a career which is not even related to their academic background as well. This might seem to be very illogical, but then this is what the current scenario is. So based on the crowd that we are targeting, whether it is through social media, whether it is through TV channels, whether through newspapers, it is going to target different kind of crowds across the country and across the globe as well. Right? So it becomes very mandatory for any university to target different channels of medium, whether it is digital or non-digital, right? In order to get the crowd from varied backgrounds, in order to have I would say a more varied environment on the campus as well.
Wow. So if I'm able to understand it correctly, I'm just trying to paraphrase and correct me if I'm wrong. So you're saying that one is that through our marketing initiatives, we should focus on attracting people from varied backgrounds, which is more diversified geographically also, demographically also. And the second point that you've raised, in the first half of your briefing was that we attract people, right, for whom the courses that we are offering are aspirational, but they are not that competent for that particular course, so they don't really become employable considering that they have done that particular course, right? So is it a targeting issue, or is it something which is beyond our control? Because how can you stop somebody who is eligible to take up a BTech course, but after he has pursued BTech, right, he is not, he's not employable. So that's to me, it's very, very difficult to handle. But do you ever have experienced any solution?
Right.
And I would also want Malhar sir to contribute.
Right.
Thank you. I'll just go back to the basic questions.
See, whatever things I said is based on the actual practical experience that we face, right? I am being into the training placement and career development cell. We have more than 2,000 students in a batch for engineering itself, right? But when we come into when the students come into placements in their final year, hardly 50% of the students are interested to get placed in companies. Right? There is a 50% crowd which is not at all interested to get placed because they have their own, if I talk about Gujarat particularly, right, they are more business oriented, right? So, to be frank, in Gujarat, people would study engineering only to get a good spouse, right? So, this is one of the facts, right? So, and secondly, they want to go abroad because if you want to go abroad, you need to come with a course which is 12 plus 4. Right? If I talk about TCS, Infosys, these kind of companies as well, these companies are going and hiring BTech students, but they do really have a need of BTech students. They really don't have a need of BTech students. They just require 12 plus 4 student which has pursued an education of 12 plus 4. Right? Why? Because that is the basic criteria to get an H1B visa and they can be deployed in US or maybe other countries, right? Because their majorly projects are coming from countries outside India, right? So, and this can be seen from the fact that even in spite of the fact that the student might have learned 4 years of engineering in a particular college, still he or she might have to undergo almost 3 to 4 months of intensive training in Infosys or TCS, where they make them unlearn the things that they have learned, then they make them learn and relearn, right? So, it is a very irony, I would say, about the education system that we are feeling very happy that we have created very good engineers just because of the fact that they have been placed in mass recruiting companies like TCS, Infosys and Cognizant, right? But the matter of the fact is that they don't require the kind of education that we have imparted to them, right? So they just require the basics that we have taught, that even a student from 12th standard also can be employable in companies like this. If I give, I'm just trying to relate it with the employment part because I'm from that particular field. If you talk about recruitment from Google, right? We have seen that now Google has stopped recruiting from IITs as well. You know where the Google is trying to recruit the students from? They are trying to recruit the students from open source platforms. The platforms, right, like GitHub, Stack Overflow, these kind of platforms wherein student from any educational background, it is not necessary that the student has to be an engineer. That student can also be a 12th pass guy. If he or she is able to solve the problem statement which the Google has kept it on the open source, these guys are recruited even over and above the engineering graduates as well, right? So what I'm trying to say is, education system is one thing because that is a mandatory part that every company has come up with, because we require only graduates, right? Whether it is an engineering graduate or a normal graduate, even the industries don't prefer to go for postgraduate and PhD guys, right? Because they also don't have trust on our education system. This is to be very blunt statement, right? But then this is what the matter of the fact is. How many companies would be willing to take a postgraduate student? If you go into a corporate sector, there are no people who are I would say hardly you can count it on your fingers that how many of them have done PhD. But then PhDs are more attracted in the education system, because we think that the more educated a person would be, he would be more talented, which is a very, very wrong fact. So coming to your point, that it has become very mandatory, and this is what the private universities are doing at this point of time, that they are attracting crowd from all channels, whichever is possible, right? So that they can get the best of the talent from that particular candidate, because every individual has a potential. It's not necessary that it has to be from academics itself. If it would have been the case, then the universities might not have, I would say, sports facilities. They might not have some other facilities which are apart from the academics as well, right? So,
All right. Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, it's audible. So,
I think we went a bit off route, but yeah, thank you so much for your inputs. Gujarati is getting married. No, Gujarati is pursuing engineering to get married was an insight for me today. Gujaratis are totally different in all aspects of life. So.
It's like if you see the wedding invitation of a Gujarati person, they will write that the name is Santosh Nair and bracket it is M10, right? And that is M10 in engineering or mechanical engineering or some other thing, right? Which we usually don't see in any other states.
Okay, so you've experienced this of yourself. All right, fantastic. Congratulations on that point. All right, so as Santosh sir mentioned, and Malad sir, I'm pointing this question to you, that institutions try their best to attract as many students, and they try their hands out on experimenting with all the marketing channels. So, one is marketing in educational institution is more assumption heavy, right? Because there is limited data-driven approach. Second, I want to ask from you is that now social media seems to have been playing a lot important critical role, and most of the content on social media is user-generated, right? So how do institutions make best use of it, and how do you control it, right? So these are the two things that I would like to you to touch upon, please. Can we have some extra mics, please? Okay.
To address this question, I believe we may have to understand one angle of it. When we talk about education, education has its own stages, right? So when we talk about marketing, marketing is definitely required for academic institutions, no matter which institution, which category you fall in. But what type of marketing is required? Based on that, probably the usage of a media can be defined and quantified with its own performances. For example, as on time, as I'm working with the MIT group of institutions since long years, more than 13 odd years, I have been experiencing around 13 odd separate institutions with separate behavior patterns. So I have a small skill-based program. I have a distance program. I have a full-time 4-year engineering program, which is affiliated to Pune University. Along with that, we have come up with design, which is integrated with engineering and design together, club together. We have already established a design institute. So when we talk about all these angles, in addition, I have one school which I handled with Ambezoga, is one of the remotest location in Maharashtra. So when we look at this, digital media and with its penetration, because that's the first question, and I'll go back to Samir's response to that. When we talk about a school which is a remote place, I don't think digital media will play a role. There, still they follow the conventional pattern, very conventional pattern. Now come up to the second stage, suburb, semi-urban areas where people are small, relatively aware about it, there you can tap them members. So what is the basic angle of it? You cannot rely only on one medium. You need to have multi-channel admission process. Multi-channel admission process in terms of reaching out to the right audience. That goes to the right people. So now coming out to the aspirational values of some people, right? So there are people, there are a sizable chunk that people wish to go to Pune, Mumbai, Bangalore, Delhi, or any other good place where even Chennai is one of the matter for that matter. So people aspire to be there, and these members are definitely there on internet. They are exploring information which they are looking for. So exploring and giving right information is the perfect way. So does it say that social media or internet is the only medium to handle that? Answer is no. Because when a guy is probably in Muradabad, Muzaffarpur, probably internet has reached to them very well effectively, but they are still misguided very easily. Because, thanks to Google Baba, he has already come up with sponsored ads. You put up something keywords which are popular, which you can anyways take out from internet. Google only gives you the popular keywords for that matter. You use them, you advertise with them, and you can influence somebody's thought with it. So a guy who is remotely located, has an access, but is he getting the correct information? I still feel the answer is no. Because he is not given that enough access. How does social media play a role? Yes, it plays a role to balance the impact. If you give a right information, you can reach out to the right audience, and you can definitely, give a very balanced information to the candidates. That plays a key role. And now when people are coming up and talking very good about or very bad about an institution or a program, because this is something we usually refer to a reputation management. And when it goes on internet, we call it as online reputation management. So there are forums across the internet space. There are popular, there are unpopular, and people do visit them. I mean, I'll quote here, I should not, but I still quote, Quora or Pagal Guy, it was earlier. They were very good platforms where you can neutrally ask questions and your biased questions will be monitored. But now the things are changing. People being more aspirational in business values, education is not only restricted to your full-time classroom modes. It has gone really beyond that. So people sitting in your own hometown, I have experienced that, they can literally have an access to YouTube and they can modify and they can satisfy their basic needs. So in earlier panel also people were referring to university structure of or education structure of 4.0. What does that really mean? The meaning is we need to reach to the deep root of education, and reaching out to that, probably the technology and social media or an internet is a good tool to reach. And as far as controlling these angles, I still feel there are a lot of people who spend huge amount to manipulate the facts, which could be the bold statement, but it is okay, but that's the situation. That's all I think I can.
Great insights. So taking cue from what Malhar sir and Santosh sir mentioned, I would like to route these two questions to Sunita ma'am and Mohit sir. We have talked about digital transformation, use of social media, adoption of technology, and on the contrary, being a technology company, we have observed that the key functions of an educational institutions, be it the marketing team, the admissions team, the back office team, the finance team, they keep on struggling with things which they are not supposed to do, and they are not really able to focus on their course, right? So as per your experience, because of this shift from offline to online which is being seen, how the institutions are absorbing to this change, right? And what at your institutions and whatever that you have experienced, what are the suggestions that you would like to give to different institutions across? So you can please give your share or inputs, and then Mohit sir, if you can just highlight any points.
Yeah, good afternoon to everyone. Thanks a lot to ELITS for bringing us together here for this discussion. I would like to go to the basic point of the challenges which management institutes are facing, because I come from that background. I've spent the last 30 years engaging with different kinds of institutions where enrollments is becoming a huge issue. Now, when we are talking about a PG student in specific, we find that the mindset of the student has changed. The mindset is such that he is wanting to get the best of the information from all possible sources. And social media and screening of the websites of the institutes play a significant role over there. So the first thing that we have instituted in Aditya group of institutions, where we have architecture, we have design, we also have management, we have brought in a separate department, which is called the marketing department, which takes care of the analysis of data. So what we do is, we use SEO in order to analyze the visibility of the institute, utilize those inputs and try and incorporate the content in the website. See, the basic idea is that today's student, since he is information technology savvy, he's wanting to get information the way he wants to read it. Having testimonials from the alumni, having some of the success stories of the past students, that also has been incorporated into the website, so that the student is able to hear things in the language that he wants to understand. So therefore, what we feel is technology has a very significant role to play. On one hand, yes, there are parents as stakeholders. We have tried to educate the parents, counsel the parents also by sitting with them, and we have been having several sessions with the parents, in addition to the sessions that we have with the students, where not just the walk-ins are dealt with, but we are using technology in order to, one, generate the leads, second, nurture the leads, and get the leads to go to the right counselors. So there is a process in place. So what you are asking about is the change in the role. So the function of people who are in charge for admissions has changed dramatically. This dramatic change is in terms of appointing this person as the head, and we call this person a CTMO. He's a chief in technology and marketing both put together. So he's trying to utilize his technical skills. He's putting together the marketing content, utilizing multiple channels. He reasons it out with us, and we try and come up with a strategy. And that strategy, once that is in place, we are able to spend the money on the right channels, because we have Google Analytics with us. We have the entire analysis of whatever everybody has said to us during different forums. We try and marry all these important inputs and try and put it together as a sales pitch, if you may call so, right? So it is actually trying to put together technology to a very large extent. I would say 70% usage of technology, but driving it with this human touch. Because at the end of the day, I think taking a decision to join any kind of an institution is an emotional decision as well. And everybody wants to say that I would like to pursue a career where I can contribute back to the society. I would like to pursue a career where I can actually prove to everybody around me that I have done something great. So therefore, if we have to contribute to that student's mindset, to the parents, where they feel really proud of being a member in that community, I think we have to put together technology with the marketing messages in a powerful way.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Mohit sir, in interest of time, I would like to club another question with this, and would like to you to please share your inputs on that. She mentioned that now she has a marketing team, a dedicated marketing team, and there is a sales pitch that they work upon. Now, do you think that for this digital transformation, all of that, one, there is a requirement of putting up specialized people like CIOs and CMOs and CTOs, like she was referring to? And if you have context like sales pitch, and if you are marketing heavy, so is there a fear that people would start, or probably your audiences, your students, would start looking at you as marketing organizations and not academic institutions? So how do institutions balance that?
Okay, so first of all, let me thank you, the Digital Learning, for giving us the platform to speak about the education, and specifically around the marketing aspect of the education. I think to your question, let me just step back, two steps back, to first understand the evolution of the education system, the role of education system. Unfortunately, earlier, if you talk to the previous generation, the leaders of the education system, they were more focused about the education of business. You know, ma'am comes from the management institution. They were talking about the education of business element, right? You know, which was MBA, BBA, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, we are talking about the business of education. It has completely turned around. I mean, earlier, लोगों को पढ़ना पड़ता था कि बिजनेस कैसे किया जाएगा. अब हम लोगों को बात करना है कि एजुकेशन का बिजनेस कैसे होगा. अब अगर बिजनेस एजुकेशन की बात होती है तो जो पहले चरण की यूनिवर्सिटीज़ जो बनी थी, those universities were primarily built for a citizenship building, the character building of this country. You know, if you talk about the BHUs, AMUs of the world, DUs and those institutions, primarily the character was to build a citizenship building in this country. And they succeeded fantastically well. Then the role changed. The role changed after independence when we were lagging in the technology. These IITs came up and the IITs started taking up the technical education, professional education, management education, you know, the IMs came up. So the role that changed from a citizenship building to a phenomenal job creators, you know, the people who can go out and in any part of the earth and can still dominate that place that they work, you know. तो काम करने वाले की काम करने की क्षमता जो प्रोड्यूस होती थी वो वहाँ पर उन इंस्टीट्यूशन से वहाँ पर वो बनने लगी. Now when we talk about these different agencies or different components of these university system, कि marketing होना चाहिए, नहीं होना चाहिए, delivery होनी चाहिए, so we need to also understand one thing. See, as in the corporate, there are two core elements. One is the front loading, which is the sales part of it, you know, which goes out to talk to the customers and acquire clients and so on and so forth. Then there is a delivery team, which actually delivers those commitments to the customers, right? So you can't say we need to choose one versus another. Do you need a revenue sales cycle? Yes, we need that. But that needs to be backed up by a phenomenal delivery capabilities. If the institutions are still not delivering that quality education, no matter how many dollars you put into the front ending of the sales part of it, it will still, the numbers of closures of the institutions will go up every year. It's not a surprise that 826 institutes applied to AICT that we want to do a zero session because they thought putting a cart before the horse would give them something. So we also need to understand this part along with another element that I want to emphasize. Most of these functions that we are talking about, you know, the marketing, lead generation, customer onboarding, and so on and so forth, these terms come from the corporate world. Still, the corporate world terminology is pretty different than the academia world vocabulary, right? So we need to understand that the technology will not drive this education business. We also need to understand the psyche of the management which is running the institution. Just a trivia, only 35 crore people of this country understand English language. बाकी 90 करोड़ लोगों के लिए जो भाषा होगी मार्केटिंग की वो इंटरनेट पे अंग्रेजी नहीं चलेगी. मुरादाबाद का नाम लिया, वहाँ अंग्रेजी नहीं चलेगी. कन्नड़ा में चाहिए, मराठी में चाहिए. The localization of the marketing attempts also needs to address that as a country we need to think that can we engage more and more people into this education system by delivering the quality. It is not about the only marketing skills. I mean, I can put money in the marketing, but then there are still needs to be delivery that has to happen for the local community. For, as I said, again, if you look at the tiers of universities, it's the marketing term primarily is driven, you know, earlier when I spoke to a lot of newspaper folks, they said FMCG was the king. But all of a sudden, FMCG was replaced by the private players, not the private players of the education, SRMs, VITs of the world. They were pretty heavy in the marketing spend, right? But we need to understand there's a central university system, there's a state private university system, there's a deemed university system, and there's a private university system, state private university system. Not all these states in the country have opened up this act of a local, private state university act. So please understand, all the marketing attempts needs to be done along with the conjunction, along with the discussion of the institute that we are trying to do. It is not one size fits all.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much. So localization of content as per regions, demography and geographies is something that you've mentioned. There's another thing very important that you've mentioned is that we have moved from educating to create businesses and entrepreneurs, and we have made education as a business, though it is unfortunate but true. Sandeep sir, I would like to understand from you on this. Is it more relevant to train the existing people that we have in our system, right, and make them tech savvy so that they are able to adopt technology and expect to do wonders, or to hire people from the outside? Because as he mentioned that, education should not really appear as a business, though it is, but it should not really appear as a business. So should the educational institutions let the academicians remain academicians and have people on board who are specialized to take care of marketing and everything, right, beyond that? So what's your view on this?
Thank you. See, what I feel is it has to be an integrated approach. Ideally, I would suggest if you have a team which is capable of working out everything, whatever you want to have it, it's always better. Now, precisely if you have to divide any institute into, you can say, departments, ideally we would have something known as marketing, admission department, academics, placement, and also infrastructure. Now, if I outsource to someone, obviously it will be a really difficult job to really explain each and everything to that person. So there has to be an integrated approach. And when I'm saying integrated approach, it starts with marketing department, because finally the institute already have something in their mind. They have a strategic intent, what exactly they want to do. And accordingly, your marketing department, they have your advertisement and you can say media management and everything, they do it. Now, many times it does happen that whatever marketing department has planned out, or rather I would say the institute has decided on strategic intent, that is not understood by the sales department, that is admission department. It happens because their main target is to get the admission, and they have done admission in a particular way. So, so moving from that thing which has already worked for them, so sometimes it becomes very difficult. Now, the third department which I would say is academics. Now, in most of the case, I have always seen academicians or the people who are professor, they always say, I'm only interested in teaching. I just don't care what happens in placement or what happens in how the student have come here. So my only concern is I'll give lecture and I'll write research paper. So my concern is only that. Now, here the problem comes, because there's a marketing department who has done something, sales department, they have promised altogether different thing, and when they come to academics, altogether different thing is taught. Many times the things becomes worse when you have a lot of visiting faculties, because sorry to say, they have been teaching or they have been successful as a visiting faculty for many years, and so they have a very specific program, specific thing which they teach to the students, and so they are not in line with what sales department, marketing department or the management has decided. So here goes the challenge. And then finally you have a placement department, which again has to be integrated. Now technology can really help all these components, rather I would say all these people, entities which are very important for the overall development of a student to be integrated. So many times I have always seen placement department saying that students, they do not turn up. We have companies lined up, but the students are not turning up. So the issue is probably whatever they have been promised, it's not been delivered. There's an issue maybe with the academics, or maybe the admission team which has promised, or something is wrong. So when all these entities, they get in line, they understand what is happening, what was the plan, and where we are going, then the things will work out. So that is what I feel should be, and the technology can play a really great help how it can be done, we always have, many institutes are using ERPs, so you can use ERPs, or if there is anything else which can be used, so that can be used.
All right, thank you so much. The prompter suggests that we have ran out of time, so request you to please reset it to 15 minutes because we're not going to move. So Santosh sir, my question to you would be that you've been the IT director of one of the prestigious institutions for very, very long. Any technical initiative that you've taken at your institution from where you can also measure the impact that you'd like to share with us?
Okay, so my time is already tickling, and
No,
it's
no,
up.
don't worry about the time.
So let me.
They've already reset it to 15 minutes. They took me serious.
Okay, so
Thank
it's
you.
up now. It's up
Took
and
me
again
seriously,
running. So on technology perspective, I'm purely a technical person, and I'll divide this entire discussion into two different segments. First segment is how do you market your institution in technological way. That is first part. And then when you generate data with the various technological tool which you are using, how do you treat those data, right? So, when talking about the marketing your data, everybody is doing the social media campaign, the SMO campaign and SEO campaign, and the data is being generated. But where we lack is, when we generate those data, we use them in a very junky way. We have a data, we send thousands and lakhs of email, and most of the times it goes in junk mail, or the students don't treat them seriously. We send SMSs, students block those SMSs. So we are just doing one way of communication. So where the technology comes in the picture is we are using a marketer tool from Adobe, where it actually analyzes the data which is generated from the various sources. It uses AI as a tool which segregate those data to a different admission department people who's a part of the admission team, and use it in such a manner that every call which is going to the student are very personalized. And students feel that they are part of this institution, though they are not part of the institution, but they are so personalized that they feel like, yes, this is the institution which they belongs to be. And this kind of tool we are evolving. We at Indira Group of Institute, what we are doing, we have a student from KG to PG, and various set of students are coming. We are using a CRM tool from a company where all these data is being funneled at one place, centralized data, and then allotments happen. And what we do, whenever there is a application is being filled, there is an automated process where we create a group, a WhatsApp group, which everybody can make very easily, and we plant our one of the visiting faculty, guest lectures, or event management team, depending on the student interest, and we engage those students on the regular basis. So, what we are, initially we were doing that we are just getting the data, now we are doing the engagement with all the students, using the technology as a tool. So that is one thing which we did at Indira Group of Institute. Second, what we did is we have created an online quiz on the website where we ask the student to come and participate on those quiz. And those quiz, there are 1,000 to 2,000 questions are there on the quiz, which automatically keep changing those questions over the period of time. And there is a leaderboard is being generated. So all top 5 students who participated in the quiz, their names are appearing on the website as a leaderboard. And we call those students, we award them every month. So every month there is a good incentives is being given to the students. And every month over the period of 4-5 months when the admissions are on, we keep engaging them with these activities. So that is something is very fruitful. It helps in increasing our enrollment. Besides that, the one thing which uniquely we did is we used VR, virtual reality, as a tool to showcase our institute. There are a lot of people are talking about the challenges of students coming from the remote area, or how do you showcase your institute in the real sense? I mean, like, days are gone where you have a swanky campuses, you have everything, but when you go out, there are all the old dhabas and, all kind of encroachments are there. How do we deal with that? So people used to put a green landscape and put that, Photoshop all those pictures and put on the website. Students are very smart nowadays. So we understood those challenges, or what we did, we have created a virtual tour, and it is different from the 360, let's not mix it, it's different from the 360-degree, tour which, of every institute has on a website. We tied up with a company called Virtuality Private Limited, where they have created a virtual tour for the institute, where the prospective institute, actually participate in our lectures activity, where the events happening in the institutes. Whenever there is a, admission process start and our, admission people goes to the various cities, those HMDs, head-mounted gear, they carry with them. And we allow the student to actually wear those HMDs and sit virtually in our classroom in the campus. And it's in the real time. I mean, like, the students can participate in the, understanding the lecture, event participation. So students gets a feel of, actual feel of the institution. So that is one thing which we did. Besides, the another thing which we did is we use augmented reality as a tool to create a lot of application which allow the student to actually see that, let's assume about engineering college. Now, for an engineering college, we understand there's a limitation with the resources. What we do, we create a lot of AR, application where we convert the curriculum, entire curriculum into the AR, syllabus, and we allow the students to interact with those newly, used machines.
Hello?
And this also helps because those, AR applications are very portable. You can take that on your laptop or, iPad. And we see that a lot of students are, actually, showing interest to see the institution with these kind of technological use. So, for me, it's like, engaging the student in more, technological ways help, and it has helped into, increase our enrollments. Thank you.
Fantastic, great insights. So one very, very valid point that you've mentioned is that though we acquire the data, but from the point of view of marketing, we start to abuse it. A student who has shown an interest start to receive a lot of notifications. There are push notifications, there are SMSs and emails, and not just from us, from various other institutions. So it should be very, very strategically done. It should be done in a very, very personalized manner. As very rightly pointed by you, and as Mohit Dubey sir also mentioned, that localization of content also plays an important role. The next things that you've mentioned is the role of AR and virtual reality and artificial intelligence that you've all adopted at your institution. But who's going to do it? Should we develop those capacities in-house, or should we outsource it to some people who are special, who have expertise to do that? And if we are outsourcing, that raises a different sort of a concern of data security, right? So, Samir, I would like to understand from you two things. One, what does data security for educational institutions mean, and how do they ensure that their data remain secure, right? And on top of it, if Mohit sir or any one of you may contribute, that we've talked about developing the capacities in-house or outsourcing it to other people, right? Which, as per yourself, is the right way and is the futuristic thing?
So to start with, one, if we all in the room are clearly accepting that education is a business, and yes, it is a business. Second, there is a big challenge to acquire students, and the bigger challenge is how do we get better fees? How can we sell more to the same student? Can we be a part of his journey for learning needs, not only when he's in undergraduation or post-graduation with us, or do we also look at the same student from the age group of 25 till the lifelong learning cycle? So if this being the mindset, then I personally feel education institutions per se should focus only on creating across age limits content and delivering that, and all other matters on counseling, student onboarding, admission assistance, technology intervention should be outsourced to professionalized agencies. Not many business schools or education universities have done that. Some of them have done it very successfully, but most of the 99% people have not done it because they feel that marketing is what somebody and anybody can do. So I put some few lakh rupees on Google and Facebook campaigns and I'm sorted. But that's not the way it is happening. Typically, you need a very strong setup of data scientists, of Google marketeers, SEO guys, technology intervention, what sir also mentioned, those kind of skill sets, and a single institution cannot afford them for throughout the year kind of a salary structure, because this talent is extremely expensive and you need them for 3 to 4 months. So unless you have a very, very big spectrum of programs and revenue models, I don't think you should invest in that. So I completely support your question that this stuff needs to be outsourced to experts who are best in doing that. The moment you outsource, and since education is again a very conservative kind of a thought process from the trustees and the management level, it's always the fear of what happens to the data. But please understand, today data is very generically available. It is important what you do with the data. Okay, so as an institution, when we look at from the other lens, we should be very clear, has the student opted in to share his details to you through your digital campaign, through your press campaign, through your SMS campaign? If the student has given the data to you voluntarily, then it becomes the responsibility of the institution. Otherwise, your ZAT, CAT, CET, JE data can be secured and procured from all sorts of things. Aadhaar data is completely available. It is not important with that. The moment the student opts in for your campaign, at one level you become very, very responsible. Second, are you outsourcing the payment gateways, so the credit card numbers and your Aadhaar card links? If you are doing that to outsource company, there are very, very strong legal agreements available. We deal with 7 Ivy Leagues and we handle from scratch zero to the time the student sits in the class. And we are exclusive partners for competing brands. Having said that, data security responsibility penalties are very, very strong and they run into millions of dollars. So again, identifying somebody who can be a custodian of outsourced data is going to be a big challenge, but institutions will have no choice in the days to come but to outsource these activities outside, because they will never be able to hire this kind of talent, I feel.
Yeah.
All right, so that's going to be the last question, and we'll have to pass it on to the audience. If there are any questions any further. In continuation to this is something that the same question, but I'm just paraphrasing a bit, right? So what he has mentioned is that the data is already available in the market. If so, then there is no threat of data security. However, institutions feel that their data needs to be secured, right? So being very, very specifically, I want to understand from you that what measures the institutions take to ensure that data is secure. One, I think all of us are in agreement that most of the things that of automation and CRMs, all of that has to be outsourced. If outsourced and there is a threat of data security, then how do we finalize on our vendors, right? Who's going to do what? And how do we currently ensure that the data remains secure? So you can contribute, and the request is that let's be very, very specific. We've got 2 minutes left.
So let's first understand that this is the debate is about build versus buy. Do I want to build the solution in-house, or do I want to buy the solution from an outside vendor or an agency? That debate gets rested if we understand the circle of competence. The circle of competence meaning who's the best technology guy? It's the people who are into the technology world. Who's the best education guy? The guys who are sitting, who have set up these institutions, who have poured in a lot of money, who have built these institutions for decades, if not ages. So we need to probably understand whose circle of competency lies where. So we need to probably marry them together in such a fashion. So just take a little bit history. Educom introduced hardware just by selling them as ULIPs of the fintech market, right? They failed miserably. You can't just say that I'll bring your hardware and you become a smart board and smart classroom and so on and so forth. Similarly, the next phase came in when people were trying to dump their ERP systems and saying that we'll revolutionize your entire operations, and they failed miserably. I won't name the university, but they have humongously spent on a phenomenal, one of the top leading ERP players of the world. and they failed miserably to understand and to customize it to the local needs of the university system. So please understand that the technologists understand technology, they don't understand education. The education folks have invested significant amount of money in building these institutions, so it needs to be worked very, very closely without really selling them as like a smart board by selling them hardware. And then devising a lot of these things where, you know, each of these pieces can be designed in-house as well as outsourced, depending upon the needs of the management of that institution. If there are data security, no doubt about it. No in-house person can actually do the data security better than the outsourced guys. But, and that's the same thing was there when cloud came in, right? That same skepticism about the data security came when the cloud came up. But people got comfortable as they started interacting more with the technology, because adoption of technology in education system is still very, very lean. So we need to understand that the technologists and the education system, academia have to work very, very closely for case by
I
case.
don't think any institute should feel insecure about the data. Why? Because once the student comes to the institute, you own the student and you nurture the student. So I think you give them enough reasons to stay on and stick on to the institute. So I don't think there is any kind of skepticism which should be there in the minds of the management institutes with respect to security.
I know thank you for 2 more minutes. Coming to the basic line of it, when we have too much of diversification in processes, whether we are targeting, whether we are acquiring, or whether we are delivering, handling that in-house itself is a big challenge. Very rightly pointed out by 2 of the members that we need to outsource that. If you're good in educating people, let's concentrate on that. If you're not, let's outsource that. It's simple principle. So that will help people to manage diversities at effective cost, because every practice, every process has its cost. And major threat in terms of data security, I still feel India as an education, it's a long way to go. First, let's understand what is privacy, and then let's talk about the security angles to it, right? Thank you, I rest my...
Thank you so much, everybody. They have turned off the prompter, and he's already there. But I would like to borrow just another minute. If there is some question from the audiences, we'd like to answer that also. Any questions, anybody? All right, so I think everybody has spoken really well. Thank you so much to the panelists. Thank you so much for your great insights. Thank you so much, ELETS,
Round of applause.
for putting all of us together here. Thank you, the audience, for being patient. It was lovely being here.